Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. This is Ray Amanat with Taboo Talk with Ray and Steve. I'm here in Port Richey, Florida, which Florida had just an amazing time with the post-election with Marco Rubio and Governor DeSantis. And of course, joining me is Mr. Steve Reed, who's based out of somewhere.
Well, Ray, I think what you were saying is a safe house in North Texas. And Ray, you are now officially frozen. There
Yeah.
you are. You are unfrozen. So, anyway, yes, I am in a safe house in North Texas. And I am delighted to have two friends, one a very longtime friend for many, many years, and the other one is a fairly new friend. So I'm going to bring in my friend Susan Hamilton. And Susan is with the wonderful OBBM network based out of the North Dallas, Texas area. And our fairly new friend over the past several months is host and commentator and podcaster Anthony Russo. Guys, I am so glad to have you here with us today. How are you guys doing?
We are doing all right.
Fantastic. And we actually remember we met Steve and Ray through Susan. So
Oh,
Susan
yes.
connected
Yeah.
us. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so that's why I thought this would be a nice blend for us to have a little conversation today. So I I don't I just turned on the news for the first time in weeks, and is there anything different going on? I mean, I
What?
Well,
Like,
a lot of the predictions were wrong that everyone was talking about.
yeah, many of them were right. There's no question there. So we're going to go through kind of a race by race recap and look at some of the different things. We'll be looking forward. We've got some things that are undecided still, and there were some predictions that were made. Uh, anyway, we'll just leave it at that. So, Ray, since you are in Florida. One of the big things is yes, the red wave took place in Florida. Not a whole lot of other places as we were anticipating, but in Florida, uh, red wave hit.
Freedom is still free out here in Florida, and even in a lot of the large Hispanic communities, like in Miami, they thought that the Democrats would have some type of a hold on them, but no, it's Florida is pretty much flipped totally red now, which I'm excited to be a part of out here. It was a landslide for Governor Sanders and Marco Rubio. Yeah, I don't think anyone had anything to worry about with the two of those guys.
Yeah. So
So now we just got to get the rest of the country to do what Florida's doing.
I don't know. I think it's interesting when you hear Anthony and when you hear several other people talk about what goes on in Florida. Let's see what's Move Freely America. Tom Bogart was talking about it too. I mean, these you may have that red. You've just got a lot of legislation on the books that needs to get changed, or you're in the same kind of peril as the rest of us. You know that needs to change.
yeah.
And we've got to be more active. Larry's a little despondent this morning. I'm not listening to everything that I've heard yet. I've still got a lot of results going in. I worked the elections yesterday, and I know what I saw firsthand. And I feel very strongly that some things they just don't add up.
Mhm.
And I haven't had enough time to talk with everybody and just find out where literally everybody. I've been texting. I've been going through our Telegram channel, going, "What'd you hear about this race? What'd you hear about that race?" I don't know anything yet. Well,
Mhm.
why? I'm really kind of curious, but why nobody I know is talking about that. So, Anthony, you may be more up to date on that, but I know I was out there late till about 9:30 and until my mouth quit working. So I sound very different today because my mouth literally, you guys will love this. Susan doesn't talk near as much today because I really, and we've got a full day in studio today where we've got 6 other episodes that we're doing, so I got to get my act together. But man, how did you spend it, Anthony? How did you spend the election season yesterday?
Well, I did a show last night at 6 for Truth Will Set You Free, Truth Tuesday, just happened to fall in the election. And then I just stayed up watching with my crew. And then we And then I did a radio show late last night with a guy by the name of Clyde, and we talked for an hour. And he is a previous left Democrat that has a show they told me that he was a centrist. And then I went on. I'm like, this guy is just as far right as I am. So, which isn't as far right necessarily as Susan or possibly the rest of you guys. But you are a solid red.
I am a constitutional conservative.
Yeah. What I saw last night was a referendum on a lot of different things. One of those being Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And I actually oppose what Susan just said in terms of, like, I think you were mentioning Florida. Although they won a lot of their races, they need to change some of their ideals to make them more conservative. I think that's the reason Florida turned so red. I think we need to stop being so strict in party lines in terms of our platforms. Like, I think Texas, although Abbott won handily, I think it's because Beto is he's a horrific. He's a great fundraiser, horrific when it comes to a candidate. But you look at some of the races like Lauren Davis, whether win, lose, or draw, it should have been close, and it wasn't. So I think the reflection on the Trump strict voting, the strict belief system, whether it's election denier or not, I think needs to be stepped back just a hair. You look at Arizona right now. That is one of the only states I'm truly questioning, because they called it out early in the morning. They said, look at all these problems, and I've got message after message from people there with problems. Whereas in Texas, I just think the cities don't know how to vote red anymore.
I think I'll tell you what, it's pretty interesting, and I don't know what Steve dealt with over there in Collin County, but for us, I see things that it doesn't make sense. How, for instance, some of the write-in candidates, you would have only known about the write-in candidates if you were part of that text stream. There wasn't mass marketing about it. You had a couple signs in the front yards, but really a lot of people hadn't talked about it unless you were familiar with that race that had to do with the judiciary. You wouldn't have realized why you had to switch out that judge in Pronto, but the people that were doing it were clearly Republicans. And so they were coming in going, I want to look for that. We had that listed on the left-hand side of the poll, and they were able to go in there and do it. So how does it make sense that we've got a clean sweep with Abbott and Paxton and Patrick, and yet we're going to say no, that because they didn't vote. They were very clear. I spoke with over 700 people at our location yesterday.
Wow.
And in person, that I talked and I helped through, because so many people just didn't understand where things were. And to make it easy, you couldn't hardly get out until you did a review of the entire unopposed judiciary, which I think is very eye-opening and something everyone should see. And I really pointed that out. Take a look at that list of people that are unopposed here in the judiciary, because no matter where it goes, that's where things are going to end up, where it's going to get fought out.
Yeah,
And and it just didn't make sense.
In Collin County, far north Dallas, most of the judiciary was unopposed, and it was kind of interesting. I looked at the ballot that was online. I don't know, 3, 4, 5 days before, and it's like, okay, I don't even have to think about those things because they are all unopposed. But there's so many other races, not just, in Texas, we came out well. We kept the leadership intact. Now, if we can even get some of our leaders to be a little bit more conservative and really take the state where it needs to go, I think we will be much better off in Texas. But Susan, you're right. There are a lot of other things that are going on. Some of the bills that need to be passed, some of the righting of the ship needs to be done. I had a short meeting with somebody last week who's very involved in the McKinney School Board, and there's a lot of controversy that our mayor is very pro CRT and transgender and all of the other nonsense. It's like, dude, what is wrong with you? You are absolutely insane. So anyway, let's keep going through some of the different other races. But before we do, Anthony, you mentioned just in passing, Truth Will Set You Free. Just take 30 seconds and tell us about your podcast and Truth Will Set You Free and some of the other things that you are doing.
Yeah, so we're on episode 113 this last week of Truth Will Set You Free. It's evolved a bit. It is a show that essentially was having conversations from across the party lines. hard to get that anymore. So what we really do talk about is we find the issues in news that people are wondering, is this true? Is this not true? And we kind of discuss through it. So it's not just your run of the mill news show. And then there's blunt force discussion, which is a one-on-one interview. I've had some great people on that. That's really talking about anything from politics to activism to military, all of the above.
Excellent. And Anthony, I know you've got an event that's coming up next year. I'll bring a slide up in a little bit. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Susan, get ready. I want to go to a real quick commercial break and have Ray tell us some things about his organization, Heroes in Action. But Susan, when we come back, I want you to tell our listeners a little bit about OBBM Network and some of the things that you have that are going on, and then we'll go back into the election results. So here we go.
Hi, welcome to Heroes in Action. I'm Ray Amanat, founder and creator of this training system. I originally made it so that everyone can train for free. We have programs for kids, for women, families, and businesses. I'm an author, speaker, and educator on everything that has to do with violence and bullying prevention education. If you'd like more information about who we are and what our programs are, please go to our website at heroesinaction.us or give me a call if you have any questions at 727-314-2534. We hope to see you here to train.
Ray, I know you're saving your voice. I'm guessing you were up late last night yelling and screaming and cheering for your governor and all of the other good things that are going on in the state of Florida. So you don't have much voice today. But I know you've got a big fundraising event coming up in June. You've got a cruise that's coming up, and that's going to be sailing from Tampa to Cozumel and then back. And I believe it's a 5-day cruise. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. We're excited to partner with Royal Caribbean Cruises to do this fundraising event. Whether you want to train on the ship going to Cozumel or not, just by booking either a window or we've got a whole bunch of window cabins and balcony cabins reserved. So just by reserving your spot, you're helping raise money for Heroes in Action so that we can continue. I'll be speaking at a Pepin Academy school Monday, where I'll be there all day talking to the kids and hopefully do something a little bit more elaborate with them throughout the year. So we need to get the money in to continue funding the programs that we're doing for the communities, not just here in Florida, but everywhere else in the country.
Yeah. Very cool. And I understand you've got a program right now. If you can get 4,000 people that contribute $5 a month, that'll pay all of your expenses so you can train and go any place in the United States. Am I right with that?
All of our books, all of our handouts, all of our superhero capes for kids, all of that will be covered. Our travel expenses will be covered. So if we can get to 4,000 donors that are donating $5 a month recurring, that covers everything that we need to be able to go anywhere in the country and serve our communities to help promote violence prevention and anti-bullying for schools, businesses, and communities.
Outstanding. Right, thank you very much. So let's go back to the show. I'm going to bring Susan back in again. Susan Hamilton with OBBM Network. And Susan, tell us about what OBBM Network is, and then we'll get back into the election results.
OBBM Network is putting power back in the hands of our local business communities. Back where when we used to design the cities, right? The local business community is pretty huge. 90% of American micro to small business tend to be family-owned businesses of 9 employees or less. They don't tend to realize that they're 50% of our nation's GDP, and which means that if your community is currently being run by the United Nations through the Sustainable Development Goals and the initiatives surrounding that for Agenda 2030, you are probably realizing, wow, that's not constitutional. Those are not things that really are going to advance liberty and advance freedom for American citizens. So what can we do? We are so much more powerful than we realize, and so we're showcasing that. So we do podcast and television commercials. The fastest way to really grow brands is through media. So we provide a way to do that. We've got studios over here off of 635 in Luna and Farmers Branch that you can come in and get everything taken care of, a complete done for you service, and then we program those things. And now we're getting beyond even the business to business content, because we are about to be launching on December 1st. We've got South Carolina all through the eastern Florida coast, 6 million viewers that we're going to be reaching through new programs there on a CBS affiliate. So we're really excited about what we can do in linear programming that's no longer just business to business, but also serving the families in that community and putting some family values back into the programming. And you'll be able to see that through OBBM Network. Right now, you can find OBBM Network podcasts on your Spotify and any of the places where you would listen to podcasts. OBBM Network TV is on Roku, Rumble, another 25 other free speech platforms.
Very cool. Susan, I remember first time you and I had a conversation about this was probably about 5 years ago, and you were very much in your infancy back in those days, and it's really exciting to see where you've taken OBBM Network and some of the talent that you're bringing in. Speaking of talent, the only reason why we have the one and only talented Anthony Russo is because of you. You and I talked several months ago. I said, I'm looking for some really good content type people that have an opinion and a good opinion. So,
and well articulated. I always enjoy Anthony, and I really, really, really enjoy the blunt force. I totally dig that. Yeah,
I would, Susan and I did the show together for a bit, and the only reason it stopped is because I could only drive 2 hours each way so many times without.
Well, you know what? We've revamped it. As you can see, clearly I'm on a green screen. What we've done now is offered we've completely painted this studio up, and we offer now a middle ground besides our large production studio, and to do that. So we will be having people remotely, and so I think you'll be able to see Anthony coming in the future.
If you want to pipe me in on a special,
I think so.
I'm of course down with that, Susan.
Yeah.
Sorry to carry the conversation real quick. I have to ask Susan a question. This is actually for all of you guys. This is one of my new, and this might be something to even work with all of you guys with. Have you guys heard of CNN 10?
No. What is it?
I can't believe, Susan, you have it. CNN 10 has played it, based on my research, anywhere from 40 to 50% of middle schools and high schools. It is a 10-minute snippet done by CNN for children that is unbiased. You can look it up on YouTube. They do it every day. And I want to do an answer to CNN. So that'll be clean. That'll be something you could put on a CBS affiliate. An answer to CNN 10 that essentially says this is what's true in it. And they do a phenomenal job of making it seem unbiased with these undertones and little messaging. So, and that is really where, we're looking at 2024, 2028, 2026, whatever. This is what's interesting. So something to pay attention to, Susan. We could talk about that, of course.
Okay,
later.
I just subscribed. I will understand that.
Indoctrination. And when I asked parents to ask their kids, they didn't know it. Like, have them go, I had no idea my kid was watching this every day for 10 minutes at school. Anyways.
Wow.
I digress.
Well, what people don't understand about technology is really gruesome. What technology can do today, and they're already absorbing just so much data, and we don't know what data is. But I'll tell you when we can't ignore how important it is, even for the vote, to really get back to paper and for some really reasonable things. I mean, when you look at the elderly population, how many people had such a hard time pressing the button, and when they made you press it over and over and over just to scroll through something, and just how frustrating that was for people or handicapped people. I just thought, wow, there's a cruelty really there. They certainly felt it. They want, and there were some people that were immigrants that just wanted straight Republican ticket. Can we just vote straight ticket and make it easy for them, because they're not aware. They just they understand where liberty lies. And they're trying to pull those pieces together, and it just makes it really hard. The data is, a lot of what they're collecting on having these kids watch this stuff YouTube and Facebook. This is where that data collection is going on
Yeah.
in ways that we don't understand. That really creates an environment where they can really be emotionally manipulated. We don't understand the power of that. But anybody in advertising really needs to understand the power of emotional manipulation. You use that on a child, and you really lay the groundwork that it's hard to educate through. It's for their own liberty, right?
Yeah. Speaking of education, we have a state, one of the large states. We're going to talk about New York for just a moment, and talk about the race for governor between Lee Zeldin and Kathy Hochul. And I am absolutely blown away with the crime rate in New York, with inflation the way it is, with people vacating, running away from New York in droves, whether they're going to Tennessee, Florida, Texas, some to Arizona, but they're all going to more conservative southern states. Lee Zeldin obviously had a very good message about getting rid of the crime. How in the world are all of the conservatives gone from New York? Why in the world did Kathy Hochul win the election?
Susan, you or me?
I think that when we go on the premise that it all is that everything is what you see, you forget that, if you walk by sight and not by faith, your eyes will deceive you. I think there's a lot going on right there. I don't think that there's any way that as far as even Faith Johnson here, when you're talking about what crime really looks like, the crime is insane. If they're not prosecuting actual crime, and they're still incarcerating and low. I mean, we've got our prisons are just blown up to the point where our officers in those environments don't feel safe. It's that bad. It's that full. And then we're going to have, but if they don't reflect the numbers, it's because they're not counting the numbers.
Yeah.
And
I'd like to add to that also. There is a silver lining in New York, that they're flipping a lot of the House seats
Yes.
from Democrat to Republican.
Yeah.
So that for me is a silver lining to where it can kind of curb the amount of power that she has as governor.
I actually think that New York was. I hate to say this when you're trying to. It's a win or loss game, but that was a moral victory. Lee Zeldin was down, I believe, almost 15 points just a couple months ago. He ended up closing the gap to 5 or 6 the last time I saw it this morning. I think that is a moral victory for this purpose. New York has already lost a lot of people to other states. They've moved to Florida. So whoever is left, like California and New York, I'm like, how is there going to be any conservative voting? Most of the people have left that wanted to leave. They still did a good job making up room. As Ray mentioned, the House, Lawler, now that race got a little bit closer overnight, but Lawler was actually in the lead when I went to sleep, and he's up by about a half of a percentage point at this point, and it's down to 98% have reported. So I think there's been some shifts, and some of those House seats that shifted, those are the ones that are actually going to be putting the Republicans in control of the House, at least. So I think New York was a moral victory with some actual battle wins in there, and I think it shows the overall sentiment of this country. The percentages shifted towards the Republicans. They just didn't shift enough in specific states. The exact thing that I was talking about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, where I was like, yeah, it's great that Republicans are getting these national ballots or the national polls where the sentiment is shifting. That doesn't matter. Which matters is the states. This isn't the presidential election. And fact is, the numbers shifted Republican, but we didn't win in the percentages we needed.
Right.
Well, and I think part of it also because there's been such a southern migration. A lot of the conservatives are fed up with New York and Michigan and Illinois and so forth. So they're moving south, taking their conservative votes south. Thus, Florida is now a red state. Texas is even in many ways more red than it has been in the past. Tennessee is really becoming a prevalent or predominant red state. So you get a lot of the conservative states that are winning because conservatives from those states above the Mason-Dixon line are coming to their senses. They're moving south, making the southern states more red. So anyway, before we go any farther, I've got to throw that the infamous disclaimer out there. This is an opinion based program, and it doesn't necessarily reflect the opinions and thoughts of any of our sponsors. And hopefully, Ray's not going to get too choked up as I continue talking about how we are an opinion based program. So don't throw stones at advertisers. So anyway, so guys, it is time. We need to take another short break, and I want to share some things with you about a product and a program that I was introduced to almost a year ago, and I have seen some remarkable results with this. So I want to talk about LifeWave. LifeWave is a science based or a bioscience type company. And what we do is, or what they do, should I say, is they have developed a way to use your own body heat, your own uh, light that you put off, and they've developed a product or a line of products. It's this little wafer thin patch that you just wear it on your skin. And what it does for you is it helps you feel younger. It's going to give you more energy, better sports performance. You actually recover from your sports performance much faster. You're going to get much better sleep, dramatic pain release. That's what I was originally introduced to with the product, and I found dramatic pain relief both from some bulging discs that I have in my lower back, but also pain relief from a surgery. Here's another good one is wrinkle reduction. It's amazing how you can get all of those benefits out of one little patch. Scar reduction, etc. So there's so many different benefits that you have. This actually, because of the technology, it literally reverses the aging process. We have documented proof, scientific studies, and we can proudly make that kind of a claim. So, LifeWave, if you'd like some more information on LifeWave, I'd be happy to give you information on the product. Got some great videos, and we are really screaming through. We've got a lot more races that we need to talk about. So, I'm going to bring Anthony and Susan back into our program. Let's talk, since we're up in the Northeast, let's talk about Pennsylvania. Uh, Doug Mastriano, he didn't pull it out. Shapiro won. Okay, so they've got a new governor, or will have a new governor in the state of Pennsylvania. What is that going to do for the overall temperature and election results and legislation and so forth? What do you guys think is going to happen in Pennsylvania with that side of things?
I can tell you Pennsylvania is a mind-boggling state to me. So we were worried about in 2020 allegedly dead people voting. Yet in Pennsylvania they voted for somebody that actually that did die. One of their Democrats. That is how how hard blue they are in some ways. Anthony Tony DeLuca died on October 9th with a battle with lymphoma, and he actually won this for Pennsylvania House Democratic Caucus. And then you've got a guy that, no matter if you want to be sympathetic or if you want to call me an ableist, there is no way, shape, or form that Fetterman should have ever been considered to run, and they still voted him in. Pennsylvania, to me, is one of the most broken states in the country. And I saw the numbers early. There was just no way that Oz could close the gap, and I thought that was one of the ones that I thought was a solid done deal. So Pennsylvania across the board, like you said, is just I don't even know what to do with that, especially with all their crime, their issues, and it doesn't make any sense. It does not make any sense.
It's insanity. And you're right, Anthony. I think it's because they are such a blue. Those people that are blue are so blue they can't possibly look at anything other than. All you had to do was watch the debates, and you could see that Fetterman was not physically or mentally up to the job, but yet they still voted for him.
Well, it's debate because they only had one, and the rest of the time
yeah.
he was dodging everyone.
Well, he was dodging, and he was pulling a Biden and staying in his basement.
Yeah, we've got a really strange that's just strange considerations as far as who's qualified for these positions. And it's not that's not to say that people have gone. My husband had a stroke, and he's recovered. I understand cognitively what it means to recover from those things and to go through those different levels. So I certainly have a heart for that, but that I certainly also know that there's a capacity difference for what you do when you're going through those things.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily, I mean, can we count on somebody that may not be able to react quickly or respond articulately in a time when communication is so vital?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
Susan, it's also one thing where you're making decisions for yourself and your family.
Right.
He's making decisions for that whole state.
Exactly.
And the
Exactly.
country. I
And
mean,
the country. Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
sending him to DC. This is, my dad was disabled. Here's the deal. He had limitations. He had multiple sclerosis. I'm not going to say, well, he deserves to be allowed to run a marathon. You need to find a way to do it. It's not going to happen.
But that could happen today, Anthony. Today, that could happen.
He identifies as a marathon runner. Yeah. So the thing behind it is there's just no lack of and this whole wussification, I'll call it, of our society, where we have to walk on eggshells. And I thought, and I had to talk yesterday on a bunch of radio about negative campaign ads. Why do they work so much? And is there a way to get out of it? And I said, Oz right now in the last 3 weeks, and I know that Susan and I don't love Dr. Oz, but he's better than Fetterman in every way. Is there a way for you to run a clean campaign? Oz ran a pretty clean campaign the last 3 weeks because he knew that he couldn't slam Fetterman's cognitive ability. And I said, Oz is going to be able to show us if you can run a positive campaign. And what happened? He lost.
Yeah.
You know what, though, that I'm just such a crazy idealist. I don't believe that should mean, okay, done that. If the, I would say the anti-liberty establishment, I'm out of words. My husband's just going to love me.
Communists?
Communist, Marxist.
If
Socialist.
it's really between people who, and I believe it is, that there's a difference in opinion based on, do you understand what liberty is, how you achieve it, how you maintain it, how you honor that, or more of a globalist idea that you really don't have any independence or independent autonomy. You are part of a collective. End of story. And that collective actually is never a rule. Your collective is ruled by a ruling class who calls themselves elite. So that's pretty interesting. That you got these two different points of view, and it's like, where are you going to be on that? If they had adopted the idea that I'm going to approach something, and then if it doesn't work, well, damn, I guess it just didn't work. I mean, they don't do that. They drill and they drill and they hammer and they hammer and they just keep going back. And I wonder where our resolve is. I wonder sometimes about, this epidemic of cowardice that we've had to stand up for liberty. We've had great risks in our world before. We're not willing to take a risk today for somebody to call us a name. That's going to mean we're going to just stand down because no, I mean, we've got to continue to be known for truth, be known for people that are willing to work things out, that actually prove through time tested that a lot of the name calling is ridiculous. We can, it's not extreme to want your children and your grandchildren to have a free America. It's not extreme to want to have a business run in a manner that you want to run your business. Yep. People have a right to come in and out of your store, but then you should be able to decide how you want to run that business without that government intervention. But we're going to have to really, I think, continue to do that. We're going to be launching the constitutionally compliant business course very soon through our locals channel, and we'll have window clings that you'll be able to put in your windows that identify in a proactive manner, guys, before anything, that Constitution. Yep. That we are not going to step on your inalienable rights at all in our business. And I think it's when you start standing up for that, people start asking questions. Do I think that's going to be easy? No, but neither were any one of the battles we've ever fought to have a free society. And once you lose it, what you're going to get it back? What's it going to take then?
But that's the thing. I think it's that fear of drama. People don't want to deal with the drama of being called a racist or being called a homophobe. Well,
I sure talked to a lot of immigrants yesterday that would tell you that there's other things to be afraid of. Be afraid of that drama in that way.
You can say that. That's the problem. There's only certain groups. There's quote unquote protected classes that can say that. If you
Yep.
are an
Exactly.
immigrant, if you're Latino, if you are African American, you're allowed to blur the lines pretty much everywhere apparently up to anti-Semitism. That's where your freedom of speech ends, that we're learning right now. But there is a certain group that can say the things like we're talking about. And Ray, the homophobic stuff, if I were to say it, God, it would come crashing down on even my small platforms would crash down. So it's a question of exactly that freedom of speech, which is what I said was on the ballot here. We needed the power in order to get big tech in line and freedom of speech to come back. That was my biggest voting issue. Everybody has their own. That was mine, because I think that without that freedom of speech, we don't have freedom of information, which means people aren't going to be educated to vote. You've got 87% of the media coverage anti-GOP, according to different studies. How we even come close shows the power of grassroots conversations in this country. But it's just going to keep getting worse unless, hopefully, I mean, the House looks good, but if it's fully blue, if it became fully blue, we would not recognize.
That First Amendment, that freedom of speech is a biggie, but so is our ability to redress, our ability to, for grievance and free media, all of those pieces that make free speech work. It's like, where is that free speech? Is that in your backyard? Is that on your front porch? Is that, how do we do that, and how do we do it well? I don't think we give up. I think that we continue, and I think we look and investigate. I think we've got to. I'm not satisfied that we've been treated well, but I also know this: for all the people that talked about what they didn't like about the process yesterday, that when I mentioned, well, we're going to have to get on an election committee so we can help them understand what works, but we're not participating near the level that we need to participate if we're actually going to improve it. We keep thinking, even in this conversation, I've got to keep bringing it back. There's going to be something we have to do. We have to physically freaking do to enforce those things.
One of the things that a lot of people don't realize, if you turn the clock back 240 years, the country was divided into three different segments. You had those that wanted King George, you had those that wanted a revolution, and you had that 1/3 that was in the middle, and they could go either way. They didn't care. They were ambivalent. We've got in many ways the same scenario today, that you've got a third that are ultra left, you've got a third that are ultra right, and then you've got that third that's in the middle. But the problem is the media is so much to the left that they have the biggest voice. That's where Offbeat Business Network and Ray.
Media, we are the media. And let me rephrase your 1/3, because this really came to me early on, this 4th of July weekend of 2020. We moved into our very first studios and said, we're going to set an example for how to stand up for truth and for our right to be in business. And we're going to show people this is what it looks like to take one look at this garbage and say, I nullify that. I have a right under the Constitution to protect my home, my business, my family, and through my ability to say no when government gets inside of my right. Right? They can come this close and not any further. And when we did that, we just had the way I would describe it. Then I'll reiterate that there's a third. There's 1/3 of people that freaking get this, that understand the value of our nation, that understand that it's worth fighting for, that it's worth getting back to. It's worth really trying to understand, because maybe we weren't taught it the way we needed. We certainly weren't taught any civics. We weren't taught how the cities run, how our communities run, and how to get things done. I had so much fun yesterday teaching people what their voter ID card meant and why it's so important to never let anybody tell you not to have a voter ID card. On that voter ID card is everybody that represents you. If you want to know who to talk to about whatever, that information is there. It's your freedom. So don't tell me you don't need a voter ID card. Yes, you do, because that's for you. It's not for proof of who you are. That's your proof that you know who to talk to. But you've got this 1/3 of people that get that, and they're on fire. And then you've got this group on the bottom that's horrified. They're scared. And what does fear do? Fear kills. Fear destroys. Fear and anger and hate and all of that really muddle together. and they're really that's on the bottom. What you have is this beautiful section in between, and one way or the other, we're going to impact this group because they're looking at people that are willing to step up, and they're going, I don't know if I'm willing to take that risk, but I'm watching you, and if you do it, then I'm right there. But we could win them or lose them, and it's 2/3 either way.
And
Can you
we've got
imagine if
several
Susan
more
didn't have a
races
front
to
row?
talk. We've got several more races we got to talk about. But before we do, Anthony, tell us a little bit about the event that you've got coming up next year. And I'm going to pull up a slide that talks about the event and what it is and what it entails.
Yeah, so this is the Great American Summit. It's our second year. This is actually where I met Susan in person last year as well. We are moving it to Gillies, so we have a big venue, 1,000 people, 1,000 person is our goal on this one. Learn more about it at thegreatamericansyndicate.com. We're doing a lot of different stuff. That's a membership community, almost like a patriotic Arte syndicate. So join that, learn more about it. We are right now, we're not selling tickets, but we are doing Patriot passes for people that want a little bit of a sponsorship and to be able to have all access. Speakers last year, we had people like Bedros, we had Ray Cashcare, Nick Vujicic, Jakub Boyens,
cool.
You name it, we had it, and I've had some of them on my Blunt Force discussion. But honestly, star-studded cast of people that are going to coach about business and also talk about patriotism. So that's at Gillies, which is also the Southside Ballroom, which is where the Robert Francis or Beto campaign was supposed to have their celebration last night. That didn't go so well for them.
Oh, poor thing, poor thing. Okay. All right, guys, we've got a lot of races that we still need to talk about. So let's talk about Nevada, okay? Or Nevada, depends on where you're from.
Nevada.
Adam Lexalt and Catherine Masto. What's going on there? What's the latest?
So the last when I went to bed last night, and then when I looked at it this morning because I was up for radio at like 6, it got a little bit. So when I went to bed, it was way too early to look at. This morning, Laxalt looks like he's got it. That's what I thought late last night as well.
Yeah.
I think that was going to be if we could have just held Pennsylvania, we'd been in good shape. But I think Nevada's going to be the flip for us. And Laxalt, he ran a really great campaign. In fact, is Las Vegas. They ran on crime there, crime and economy. They saw what happened during COVID. They saw the shutdowns, people losing their work. It was a gig economy type place. So I think that's why Laxalt did so well out there.
He's leading right now by 49%, so it's not called yet, but he's in the lead.
Okay,
well,
that's good.
What's the spread?
Say that again.
What's the spread right now?
I think it showed 80%, a little bit more than 80% of the vote was in, and he had about 49%, and the other person had
7.
like maybe 43%. So,
okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good. So it's a 5 or 6 point spread.
Yeah.
So that's good. Okay. All right. Let's go close by to Arizona. Blake Masters versus Mark Kelly, and then we'll talk about Kerry Lake and Katie Hobbs. Let's first talk about the Senate race. Blake Masters and Mark Kelly. What's going on there?
Let's first talk about the issues that they've had with lack of paper and the machines that aren't working.
No ink, no paper. This is the one that, Kerry Lake called it. And fact is, when you've got places like Arizona that had issues in the previous election, you better get your stuff together and actually fix the problems. And they did the opposite, which sometimes you could say, oops, but in this case, it screams nefarious. Hobbs never removed herself from the position of Secretary of State and running the actual elections. It screams fishy. The thing with Masters is he needed Kerry Lake to pull him across the finish line. Kerry Lake is barely right now. It's looking like she might eke it out, but eking it out isn't enough for Masters. So I think I'm gonna gamble on this one. I'm gonna say Kerry Lake does actually win by a small percentage, very, very, very small percentage, and Masters loses that seat.
And that would be nice if Masters did win, because that would just give us another Senate vote.
Yeah, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah. Okay. Susan, input, comment?
I'm a big time Kerry Lake supporter. I think she speaks so well. I really appreciate her. So I'd like to see her do more than eke it out. I'd like to see her really, bring it home. Let's see what happens. Arizona is a big deal, and I'm really surprised after all this time and everything that they've gone through that those are still the issues today.
Yeah.
And I don't get how you cannot have a debate. Like I think
Yeah.
that's something that has to change. Like
Yes.
Fetterman should have shown enough, but Kerry Lake, you can't even get one out of somebody that's been around long enough that they should be able to debate. And it goes to what I've said on your show, Stephen Ray and Susan, when we talked about it. We can sit behind our computers and complain about Republicans all day long. They'll say that. The left, they'll do these little digs out of context. When you go in front of them, logic and common sense wins, which is currently the voice of the GOP party. So that's when you don't have an ability to have a debate, the American public or your state, your constituents don't get to see logic winning over emotions.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe we need to start a campaign that there have to be a minimum of 3 debates. When you talk about national elections like this, it has to be mandated at least 3 debates prior to the election for every Senate, House.
You look at any sports team for hockey or baseball for winning the World Series. They got to play so many games before you decide a winner.
Yep.
Well, in order for us to see these politicians perform, so we, the people, can choose the one that looks more like the champion or the winner that would guide our country in the right direction.
Yeah, but Ray, you know from your experience in martial arts, when you did competitions, all you had to do was show up at the last minute and you automatically won. Not that you were any good, but you had those people in your corner that voted for you and they said Ray is the best at martial arts. Okay, you didn't have to work for it, you didn't have to perform. But why is it anyway? I digress. So let's go to Georgia. Georgia is another nail biter. Thankfully, Brian Kemp did win, and thankfully that other woman that was running against him is silenced a little bit, not much. She did concede, but Brian Kemp walked away with it. So
Stacey Abrams and Beto O'Rourke should team up together. They're the
That's a ticket.
Perennial losers that somehow they get so much fundraising money. They should just be in charge of the DNC fundraising because they somehow activate idiots to give money.
I think that's genius. I think it would prove what they can do. Anthony, you're brilliant. That's great.
And get Joe Biden to come in and stump for them and so forth. So anyway.
Speaking of a stump, you got Fetterman. But to real quick in Georgia, I'm actually surprised that Warnock, I'm looking at the numbers. I was doing the math last night on the counties not reporting. I thought Warnock would hit 50%. Yeah. I thought it was going to be really, really close, but they're almost done reporting, and he did not reach. He's still at 49.4. So we're looking at a runoff. I mean, unless something miraculously changes, which it's Georgia. But I think Kemp did a good job shoring up their election. So I think that what we're seeing right now is what we're going to get, and I think we're going to get a runoff. I would not have said that at about 10 p.m. last night.
And when you think about it, Kemp will hopefully start endorsing and start campaigning with Herschel Walker. And who knows, you may get some influx from Ron DeSantis doing some campaigning. You may get Trump coming in to do some campaigning. So there's going to be a lot of that stuff. We don't know what the runoff is going to turn out. So
no Green Party for one, and I don't know. So that 2 percentage points will obviously, I think could help. I don't know. Honestly, I could go 1% each way. But I think the big issue is, and I have not been able to find this, is there mail-in voting? Because mail-in voting was at a 36% margin for Warnock. Is there mail-in voting? I could not find it. Is there mail-in voting in the runoff in Georgia? I don't know. That'll be the big question.
You can bring that to the table.
If there's only absentee and no mail-in ballots for the runoff, I would almost guarantee a Herschel Walker win. If without that, again, it's a toss-up.
Well, again, who knows? Maybe we can have a debate between the two of them, and we got to see more of what the two of them truly represent, and the media has to start reporting the dirt on Warnock. Yeah. So some really really sad stuff. So it's again another situation where the national media and social media have been sweeping his junk under the carpet.
I just think that that is an absolutely ridiculous idea that that they're just going to change now. I mean, all of the media being run by just this very little
Yeah.
group of people getting handed the news that they're allowed to talk to you about and virtually not questioning anything. Everything Carrie Lake says about that is actually true, how they
Yeah.
handle it. I mean, how on earth do you think that's just gonna change one day? Because they ought to, and we're gonna scold them, and they're gonna get all better. That's crap. The only way you're gonna make a difference is reimagine media and understand that what that looks like to take it back in your community. They're not on there. People aren't checking all that stuff out either. They're finding their media on demand. And be honest. People will find that. People will find that. They're not going to change nothing.
Absolutely. Guys, we are screaming towards the end of our broadcast. Ray, you got any final words that you need to share?
I just think what we had talked about as far as the media is concerned. I'm not a media person. I'm not a politician, but I'm so passionate about our country that's why we started Taboo Talk, so we can have a discussion and we can get people to look at other ways of thinking, and hopefully we change some minds.
Yeah.
And I know that's what OBBM Network is doing. And I know, Anthony, that's what you're doing, or that's why you're doing it, so that we can kind of be a little bit of a competition for the mainstream media.
Yeah. Well, hopefully getting people to think. So, Susan, any final words?
No, just subscribe to the OBBM Network. Hear what your community sounds like, and start looking for us in a community near you. We're going to be starting out of Orlando, actually, on December 1st. So be looking for our launch out there. But will be Chicago, Breckenridge, LA, several different places. So pay attention to that. You're going to find us linear and on demand.
And who knows what else is coming up down the road with OBBM, and who knows, maybe Taboo Talk with Ray and Steve. I don't know. Anthony, any final words?
Yeah, I think last night was disappointing for many that are in our camp, but I think at the end of the day, or in the morning, I should say, beginning of the day, we're seeing that there is still a little bit of hope to go 51-49, which is important. It's not over yet, which I'm surprised by going to bed last night. So ultimately, I do think it'll be a slimmer margin than we expected, but I think we've got a chance to actually get part of our country back in this sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my hope is that one day, maybe the next election cycle, we will have election day instead of election week or election month. So let's get back, stay informed, stay active.
Never give up.
It ain't over. There's a lot more, and we've got the presidential race that'll be starting up very soon. So stay tuned and get on your knees and pray. So,
Amen.
Guys, it has been a pleasure as always, but we are out of time. Y'all have a fabulous day. Ray, as always, it's a pleasure working with you, buddy.
Yep.
You guys take care. Bye-bye.
Easy.